So welcome today to the Right Review for You, choosing a review method for your project. My name is Ashley Farrell. I am an information specialist at UHN Libraries. And an information specialist is just another name for a librarian. And so I help people with their research questions. I conduct literature reviews. I support people in their systematic review and other knowledge synthesis projects. And I do a lot of teaching sessions, such as this one today. So I have a couple other colleagues that are in the session that will be helping support me today. So in the chat, there is Ruhi, who will be answering any questions. So if you have any questions today, please send them through the chat and Ruhi will answer them, or she will bring them up to me. And then also in the chat, there is Raluca Serban, and she will be dropping any sort of relevant links into the chat today as I'm speaking, including, I believe, a handout that was sent ahead of time as well in case you didn't receive it. So, and we also have our contact information for the library here below. So before I get into the meat of the presentation, I wanted to do a land acknowledgement. So for thousands of years, the land on which the University Health Network operates has been the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. This territory is a subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still the home of many Indigenous people across Turtle Island, and we are grateful for the opportunity to work and learn on this territory. So in addition to respectfully acknowledging the land and its First Peoples, we want to recognize the hospital libraries can play a role in legitimizing certain kinds of knowledge through the books and resources we make available in our collections. Historically, libraries have privileged Eurocentric materials and ignored or excluded Indigenous knowledges. UHN Libraries is committed to providing a collection that supports Team UHN's efforts in working toward reconciliation. As you think and develop your research, even if you're not primarily working with Indigenous populations, we encourage you to explore and learn from Indigenous methodologies and Indigenous-led research. Here are a few resources in our collection that are up here on the slides to help you get started. You can scan the QR code for more information. And also want to let you know that these slides will be available to you after this presentation as well. So we are here to support your learning and your research, so please feel free to reach out to myself or any other library staff about these resources if you have more questions. So I just want to quickly go over the session objectives today. So we are going to be talking about the differences between different review types, and we're going to focus on 5 main types as part of the presentation today. We're also going to talk about some tools you can use to help determine what review might be best suited to your project. And then also some resources and services you have access to through the library for doing a systematic review or any other type of review or knowledge synthesis project. So UHN publishes hundreds of systematic reviews every year. In Medline in 2022, there were more than 400 results for systematic reviews with the names of UHN institutions attached to the records. But sometimes in the library, when we're talking to clients, we must discuss when someone who wants to do a systematic review, why a systematic review might not be the best idea, and present some other options that might work better for them. Often this is because they may not have the time or resources needed to do a systematic review, but sometimes this is because the question they're trying to answer is not one that a systematic review will address well. And there are many types of reviews that exist out there, as you will see on the next slide here. So there was a study by the author Grant that analyzed 14 types of reviews. And in another study, the author Sutton identified 48 review types and categorized them into 7 families, and this list continues to grow. For this session, we are only going to be talking about the ones that are highlighted here on the slide. So traditional reviews, systematic reviews with meta-analysis, rapid reviews, and scoping reviews. And we've chosen these 5 types of reviews based on them being the more common types of reviews that we normally see. So I'm going to first talk about a review. So you might commonly see this when you're searching through Medline and you see an article and the word just review is attached to it and nothing more specific. So quite often this can also be called a regular review, a traditional review, a literature review, or a narrative review. And I just want to make it clear that this is its own review type. When I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about a systematic narrative review or the type of narrative synthesis that you would do for a systematic review. This is its own type. So this is a type of review, traditional review, narrative review, that summarizes the findings of some studies on a topic. For example, a journal requesting that an expert provide an article on the recent findings in an area or current practice in an area of study. And this might involve doing a traditional review where they talk about the findings of some studies, but not necessarily all studies or a large sample of studies. So for this, you're not really doing an exhaustive search or following certain methodologies, etc. You can kind of use any sort of articles in order to summarize in this. And so, yeah, as I've just said, that these types of reviews don't have a specific or rigorous methodology, but can sometimes be the best choice when there are time or resource constraints, or when a specific question isn't feasible to do in another type of knowledge synthesis, such as a systematic review. So the other review types we're going to talk about today fall under this umbrella of knowledge syntheses. So these are review methods with systematic methodologies and processes. So these can be systematic reviews, rapid reviews, meta-analysis, scoping reviews. You may also hear other reviews called mapping reviews, mixed method reviews, etc. So rigorous methodology, usually you're systematically searching the literature. There are many different types of reviews that live under this knowledge synthesis umbrella, and they continue to grow. So the CIHR definition of knowledge syntheses is the contextualization and integration of research findings of individual research studies within the larger body of knowledge. A synthesis must be reproducible and transparent in its methods using quantitative and/or qualitative methods. So while knowledge synthesis is an umbrella term, there are differences that can be distinguished between different types of knowledge synthesis reviews in several ways. And this can be in the purpose, in the time it takes to complete them, in the inclusion criteria, or how you're going to synthesize the evidence. So why would you choose one type over another, and how would you figure this out? So there are many reasons. One is that you think of what the purpose of the review method is. You think about the characteristics of the review type and think about the practical considerations. And so we're going to use the SALSA tool to look at the review type's characteristics and the tool TREAD to discuss the practical considerations. And both of these 2 frameworks are from Dr. Andrew Booth from the School of Health and Related Research out of the University of Sheffield. And so first, looking at SALSA. So SALSA is an abbreviation of search, appraisal, synthesis, and analysis. So when it comes to the search, how much do you need to find? Do you need to find everything on your topic, or are you looking just for a reasonable sample? Or are you looking for just the most recent things on the topic? Also, what databases are you going to search? How many are you going to search? What are you going to do a gray literature search? How many terms to use, etc. For the appraisal, there are some reviews that involve an appraisal process where you're evaluating the quality level of evidence for your included studies, but for some, this isn't required. For example, a scoping review, there are lots of different types of studies involved, and the number of included studies can be sizable, so it can be hard to appraise them and make some comparative statement. And when it comes to synthesis, are you going to do a narrative synthesis? Will it be tabular? Will it be graphical? When it comes to the analysis, what kind of analysis can come out of what you're looking at? Could it be a numerical, thematic, chronological, etc.? And so SALSA is a methodology to determine the search protocols for which a review should follow. This guarantees methodological accuracy, systemization, exhaustiveness, and reproducibility. So if I was looking at the traditional review type, so the purpose of this type, as we've said, is to summarize the findings of some studies on a topic. So if we were going to put this into SALSA, the search can be anything or nothing, can be as simple or exhaustive as you would like. The appraisal, again, it can be anything. You could do an appraisal, you could not. The synthesis is usually a narrative commentary, and then the analysis is usually a summary of the studies that you looked at. So I'm going to ask a question right now for you to answer in the chat. So which of these examples could be done as a traditional review? 1, is X an effective treatment for Y in a pediatric population? 2, what are the most recent treatments for rheumatic arthritis? 3, how has the concept of healthcare excellence evolved over the last 50 years in health professions education research? So please answer in the chat whether you think 1, 2, or 3 could be done as a traditional review. And I'll give you a minute to do that.
Actually, we are getting a few answers here. So
great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
What are the numbers looking like? Is there consensus? Or are there different answers?
No, it's interesting, and yes, we have number 3 and 2.
Nice. So, number 3 and 2.
Yes, yeah. Like we have like one person says 3, the other said 2. Two people said 2 or 3.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So this is actually a little bit of a trick question. So I would say, because on one hand, a traditional review is very flexible. And if you can find articles to summarize your question, you can basically do a traditional review. But for this one, I would say 2 would be the best option. This is because it's looking at the most recent treatments for rheumatic arthritis. So it's looking at kind of just a sample set of studies. But on the other hand, for question 1, if you could find some articles, but not all articles, you could do number 1. But the problem is with that, you might conclude the wrong answer for an effective treatment just because you're not finding all the evidence out there. But likewise for question 3, without a regular search or analysis, your review might not be very complete. So you could definitely do 3 as a traditional review, but when it comes to the analysis, it might not be a very fulsome one since you're not getting a good overview of the literature. So yes, I would say number 2, but I also understand why people would go with number 3 as well. So thank you for participating in that. So I'm going to move back now into the knowledge synthesis, all those different review types that are under that umbrella, and talk about purpose of reviews. So as we said, this is something to look at when you're trying to decide what type of review type to pick. So the purpose of the systematic reviews, meta-analysis, scoping reviews, rapid reviews are up here on the screen. And you can see they'll have different purposes. For example, a systematic review is looking to systematically search for, appraise, synthesize evidence, versus a scoping review is trying to assess the size and scope of available research. and trying to identify the nature and extent of it. But there is some overlap as well. For example, rapid review overlaps with systematic review, and also meta-analysis are systematic reviews that involve statistical analysis. So when it comes to applying SALSA to reviews, you can see that there are some similarities and differences in the reviews have when it comes to a methodology. For example, if we're looking at the search for systematic review, you're trying to be exhaustive with the searching. Scoping review, the completeness can be determined by scope constraints. That's often broad. It can be also iterative as well. Where a rapid review, the completeness of the searching is really determined by time constraints. So it can be very different or very limited. And same thing with appraisal, systematic review or systematic review meta-analysis, you need to do some sort of quality assessment. A scoping review, no formal assessment. Rapid review, it's more time limited. But then you get into the synthesis, where there's some more similarities there, where systematic review, scoping review, rapid review, quite often it's usually narrative and some tabular commentary versus the meta-analysis where it's going to be graphical and tabular with a narrative commentary there. So thinking about the purpose of the review and SALSA and everything we've just covered when it comes to these type of knowledge synthesis reviews. So Raluca would have sent you this handout prior to the session, but I believe she's also dropped it in the chat as well. So please take a look at the handout and consider what type of review methodology could suit different types of review questions. And so answer the 2 questions in the chat and we'll discuss the pros and cons of each answer. So I will give you a minute in order to take a look at the handout if you haven't already, and then we can answer these 2 questions in the chat. So I'll bring the first one up on the screen here for right now. And then, yeah, Ruhi, you can let me know when people have sent the answers through. So for the first question, so which of these is best suited to a systematic review? Is it 1, what are the gaps in the literature regarding the curricula of resident as teacher programs? 2, what is the effectiveness of educational interventions to increase neonatal resuscitation self-efficacy? 3, what are the research contributions of family medicine educators? So again, which one of these would be best suited to a systematic review?
So answers are coming.
Oh, great.
So far we have 2 people voted for number 2. We have 4 answers and all voted for 2.
4 answers so far and all
Yes.
for number 2.
Yes.
It's going to give just a few more seconds, see if anyone else puts an answer through, and then we can take it up.
Yeah, I don't see anyone is typing. Yeah.
Nothing else? Okay.
No, nothing else, yeah.
Okay, thank you to the 4 people who put themselves out there. Number 2, yes, is the correct answer. So what is the effectiveness of educational interventions to increase neonatal resuscitation self-efficacy? This would be a great option for a systematic review. It's a very focused question. It's a question that's looking at cause and effect, and yeah, it would be best suited for that. Number 1, I would say, would be more suitable as a scoping review because it's trying to figure out like where the gaps are in the literature versus, and then number 3, I would say that's more of a bibliometric search that you would do in order to, when you're looking to try to find who has authored these kinds of papers. So great. Congratulations to the 4 people. So we're going to move on to the second question here. So what is best suited to be a scoping review? So is it number 1, what are patients' health information needs and preferences during the pandemic? 2, does evidence exist for decentralized training platforms and the transformation of medical education? Or 3, what is the effect of mental health first aid training on knowledge, stigma, and helping behavior? So again, please send your answers through the chat.
So far we got 2 answers and both voted for number 2.
Okay, great. We have 2 for number 2 so far.
Yeah.
I'll just give it just another minute to see if anyone else wants to put an answer through the chat as well.
I think that's it. We just had 2 people voted.
That's it?
Yeah.
Only 2 brave people this time. But they are correct. Yes, it is number 2. So the reason it's number 2 is because the question, they're not quite sure if there is evidence out there. So it's going to take a look, try to get an idea of the scope, the extent of what's out there on decentralized training platforms and the transformation of medical education. Versus number 1, I would say a rapid review would make more sense. Not a systematic review. The reasons for this is that it's a little big. What patients are we talking about? What circumstance? From where? Usually with a systematic review, you're going to have more of a focused question. And then with for number 3, I would say this is a systematic review because they're looking for the effect of mental health first aid training on these types of behaviors. So great. So I'm going to move on now. Thank you everyone for participating in those questions. And I'm going to move on to talking about TREAD. So we talked about SALSA, which goes through the characteristics of review types. TREAD goes through the practical considerations when you're conducting a review. So think about how much time do you have? Do you have a year to complete something like a systematic review, or do you just have maybe a couple months in order to do something like that? What kind of resources do you have access to, or do you need to complete your review? Or perhaps what are some resource constraints that might cause some issues or hiccups to completing the review? What kind of expertise do you have? What kind of expertise do you need to have on the team? What kind of team do you need to assemble? What does your audience want out of this review? So are you thinking about a granting body? Are you thinking about the journal? Some journals are more interested in some kind of reviews than others. So that is something to keep in mind as well if you have a particular journals in mind. Also for data, how rich and available is the data? How homogeneous is it? And depending on what is or was not available, you may be unable to do one type of review or another. For example, if you want to do a meta-analysis, but you have heterogeneous data, so none of the data that exists on your question matches up in a way that will allow you to do a meta-analysis, then a meta-analysis is not going to work and you'll have to make another plan. So this is a really great tool to consider your circumstances to decide if you can do the review that you're considering. So now I'm going to talk about how to apply this to these different review types. So with traditional reviews, again, this is very open since it doesn't have a type of rigorous methodology. So really, a traditional review is dependent on what the author wants to do, how long they want to take to do it. It can be done very quickly if you want to. So if you need to do something quick, this could be an option. What resources you have is also very up in the air. And but really what you need is for the author to have some sort of subject expertise, and for the audience to want a summary of some research on a topic. And so the data is a very small data requirement, and there's no real level of quality that you have to abide by in comparison to the other types of knowledge syntheses or knowledge syntheses. So when it comes to systematic reviews, so these are reviews that systematically use systematic and explicit methods to identify, select, critically appraise, extract, and analyze data from relevant research. So they have a very clearly stated set of objectives with predefined eligibility criteria. You have to have explicit reproducible methodology, a very systematic search. You have to do assessment, for example, through a risk of assessment of risk of bias, and some sort of synthesis as well. And so quite often these types of reviews take 12 months or more. I know quite often people want to do them as fast as possible. I think they can do them in a few months. But the literature says usually it takes 12 months or more. And to be honest, from my own experience of working with systematic review projects the past 8 years at UHN, usually it's a year, if not longer, that authors will come back to me and ask for an update for the search prior to publication. So it is much more time intensive quite often than people might suspect to do properly. And then in terms of resources, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate databases in terms of the number of databases you're searching, also that the databases make sense that you have access to as well. And then also thinking about if you have access to systematic management, citation management software, which is very important. Do you have access to screening software like Covidence or Distiller? What data extraction software forms are you going to use? And then you're going to need to have at least 2 people minimum for screening. So you can't do a systematic review with just one person. And then you need to have some sort of subject expertise. Having search expertise, such as a librarian on your team, is very valuable. And then also you need method expertise to meet guideline and requirements. And then your audience for this is going to be, they want to know what is known, but not in a hurry. And then the data you're going to need is significant data. And so, but not necessarily quantitative, but significant data is required for this. And so with the systematic review meta-analysis, pretty much most of these things are going to be the same, except for the resources you need, statistical software, having access to that, very important. And also when it comes to the expertise itself, having a statistician on your team in order to deal with the numerical data is very important. And again, audience wants to know what is known, but not in a hurry. And then, but your data, you're going to need to have significant statistically compatible data. So again, going back to thinking about you need if you have a bunch of heterogeneous data, it can be hard to do a meta-analysis if you can't make it work in that way. And then looking at scoping review. So scoping reviews are, as we've talked about, mapping existing literature in a given field in terms of its nature, feature, and volumes. And so this is great when a body of literature has not been comprehensively reviewed yet. And so some of these characteristics is that you're going to have possibly a very iterative search. You're going to have broad criteria for study inclusion. You're going to have often no or minimal assessment for individual studies involved in this as well. And so with scoping reviews, they usually take 12 months or more. They're very big undertakings, just like systematic reviews are. And so again, you need to make sure you have searching appropriate databases. You have all these other resources that are listed here on the slide. You need 2 people minimum for screening, subject expertise, search expertise, such as librarian, and method expertise, very important. And your audience wants to know what kind of work is being done on this topic. So they want to get an idea of what is out there. And in terms of data, there just needs to be some research out there on your topic. So there just needs to be some studies in order to include into the scoping review. And then when it comes to rapid reviews, so rapid reviews, so they're also commonly called rapid the evidence assessments, expedited reviews, accelerated reviews, evidence summaries, restricted reviews. All these different terms refer to rapid reviews. And so usually the processes are involved are shortened, abbreviated, or accelerated. And interest in these reviews have grown rapidly since 2010, mainly due to policymakers. Quite often, if there's a policy question people want answered quickly, that's when you might do a rapid review. But the problem is the bias resulting from the shortcuts you need to take in order to do a review like this quickly can be unknown. But in terms of time constraints, it can be possible to complete one of these reviews in 8 weeks. There's information in the literature saying timeframes can be between 1 to 6 months, but really it's depending on your own time constraints trying to get it done. You need very similar resources and expertise as you would for another type of review, but you will be taking, I don't know if I want to say the word shortcuts, but yeah, you'll be shortening, abbreviating, or accelerating some of the processes here. And having a lot of expertise on your team can help with this as well. And so your audience wants to have an idea of what is known out there, but they don't have the time to wait for a systematic review. So usually when you're trying to put an answer out there quickly. And in terms of data, usually there's significant data, but again, like a systematic review, not necessarily quantitative. So I want to talk a little bit more about rapid reviews. These can be sometimes called a problem child review. This is because they can be problematic because they can lack consistency in terms of methodology. So a review can be made rapid in several ways. However, this should be done for a specific purpose and not just because someone wants to do a fast review. So a rapid or restricted review should not be code for a poorly done review. They're done usually for specific purposes. And you're going to use potential tools to help accelerate the review process. So examples of this could be adding additional resources and people on your team. So more screeners, more people doing data extraction, leveraging expertise, such as maybe bringing in an outside subject expert or someone who has a lot of experience working on systematic reviews of software, bringing in a librarian to do the search. That can be helpful as well. And then also trying to work smarter by using technology as part of the review process. So using a citation manager like EndNote or Zotero, a really great tool technology that can help with your reviews, rapid reviews, or any type of reviews are the Covidence Distiller systematic review software. If you have any affiliation with U of T at all, they have access to Covidence there. So you can see if you can try to get, if you're affiliated, you can see if you can get access to software for free through them. They can really help expedite your review, especially when it comes to screening and making screening a lot easier rather than trying to do it in Excel or a citation manager program. And also there's other potential ways to abbreviate a review process. So you can create abbreviated but explicit or agreed upon limits that you would agree upon ahead of time. So example, to include only certain study types, such as perhaps like RCTs, or put specific limitations possibly onto the search. For example, adding on a language limit, a humans limit, maybe as limiting to specific study types. So things like that. So again, there are ways to expedite a rapid review, but you should still be making sure that you're doing a quality review at the same time. So now we're going to play kind of a little game. It's called What Review Am I? And so we're going to look at some examples of reviews and figure out what methodology they used. So, for example, I have an abstract of a review up here. So based on the information that you see in the title and especially what is highlighted within the abstract here, what type of review do you think this is? And so please answer again in the chat. So is it a traditional review, a scoping review, a systematic review, or a rapid review? Those are your 4 choices in the bottom of the screen there. And I'll just give you a minute in order to read the slide, think about it a bit more, and then put your answers through the chat.
So far, we have 2 answers.
Oh, great. We have 2 people so far, so I'll wait to see if anyone else wants to put an answer through the chat as well.
I think they are coming, yeah. People started typing, yeah.
This is a safe space here. No, don't worry. We're all here to learn.
So we got the 4th. Oh, okay, that's good. 5th is there too. Let's see if we get more. So far, we have 3 answers for rapid review and 2 for traditional.
Oh, great. So 3 for rapid review and 2 for traditional.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, and no one else has sent anything else through the chat?
No.
Okay, I'll take this one up then. So, dun, 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 the big reveal. My mouse works. So this would be a traditional review. But I could also see why it could be seen as a rapid review as well. So, but the main giveaway for this one is this article reviews the author's simulation studies. So they are reviewing just a very specific set of studies. So they're not looking to kind of, map the literature or to do an exhaustive search. They're just looking at the author's own studies. So that would just be a traditional review because there's not a whole lot of methodology or rigorousness that went into it. But yes, I could also see how you think it'd be a rapid review as well because it's they're trying to do it a bit quickly. Okay, great. So we're going to move on to the next one here. So is this one a traditional review, a scoping review, a systematic review, or a rapid review? And again, the hints for this are in the title, but really in the highlighted information here on the slides. So again, I'll just wait a minute for the answers to come through.
We have, okay, they are typing. We have 3 people voted for systematic and 1 person for systematic and meta-analysis.
Nice.
And 4th is coming. I mean, the next one.
Okay, great. So far it's systematic reviews to some degree, either systematic review or systematic review meta-analysis.
Exactly. And the last one also said systematic.
Okay, great. I will do the big reveal for this one. So yes, this is a systematic review and a meta-analysis. So really, I think everybody got this right because it is a systematic review. And the giveaway is that they systematically searched multiple databases. They're very explicit in terms of the methodology and what they did. And you can see also 2 independent reviewers extracted the data, which is another sign of a systematic review. And then for the people who said systematic review with meta-analysis, yes, that is stated down in the highlighted information where they use a random effects and meta-analysis to estimate pooled post-imaging colorectal cancer rates. I would say another giveaway that this is a systematic review that maybe some people noticed as well is that it's also registered with Prospero as well, which is a place where you can register, you can stake your claim on your systematic review by registering your protocol with them. And so again, they're very rigorous in terms of what they're doing. Okay, great. Glad everyone spotted that as a systematic review. And congrats to people who spotted those in meta-analysis as well. So we have 2 more here. So what is type of review is this one here. So again, looking at the title and especially the highlighted information. So is it a traditional review, scoping review, systematic review, or a rapid review?
The answers are coming. We have 1 for rapid so far, 1, 2, 3 for scoping, and I like this scoping with 2 stars. Yeah.
That's great.
So 3 for scopings, 1 for rapid, or 1 more is coming too.
Okay, great. Awesome.
And that one is scoping.
Okay, perfect. So let's reveal this one. So yes, this one is a scoping review. And so the reasons for this are that, for one, many databases were searched as part of this review. This could also be done for systematic review. I've quite often searched 7 databases for a systematic review. So done since inception to 2021. All articles are screened and extracted by 2 independent reviewers. Again, a sign of a scoping review, but also could be a sign of a systematic review or a rapid review. But the real giveaway is the review provides a comprehensive summary on what is known concerning the implementation of EPSMs. So this review, the purpose of this review is to figure out what is out there. So looking at trying to map the literature, see what the nature is, see what the extent of the literature. So instead of answering a very specific question, they're trying to find out what is even out there on the literature on this topic. Okay, great. Glad that people got that one. So we have just one last one here. And so again, please take a look at the slide, the title, and then the highlighted information here, and see if you can figure out which review this one is.
We have just one answer for this one, so maybe give him more time.
Sure, we can definitely give another minute. So yeah, looking at the information that's popping out from here. So there's what is the evidence of UK government personal so PPE guidance on surgical masks versus respirators for SARS-CoV-2 protection? Looks like there was 2 independent reviewers. There was appraisal that was performed, and then the results were synthesized as well. And it's saying that the data sources were Medline, Google Scholar, a COVID website, and then looking at the grade literature. I'd say this one might be probably a little more difficult. There's a bit more nuance in order to figure out what this one is.
Yeah, the answer we got is for rapid review.
Okay, great. So one brave person has said rapid review.
Yes.
And yes, they are correct. This is a rapid review. So congratulations to that person for putting themselves out there and for correctly guessing that this is a rapid review. So yeah, like I said, this one is a bit of a nuance to figure out what it is. But I would say that the clues would be that they're looking for the evidence on a topic that's new out there. This is a study from 2020, so really in the beginning, the middle of the pandemic. And so they're looking for evidence quickly on PPE guidance so that they can put out a policy on it or give this information to healthcare practitioners. So again, 2 independent reviewers performed a rapid review. So again, that could be systematic review, scoping review, rapid review would do something like that. But I would say another hint that it's a systematic review would also be the data sources that they're looking at as well. They're really only searching Medline as the one published database, and then they're looking, or kind of a not published database, but a database that has a usually quite often with the systematic review, you're going to be looking at multiple databases, usually at least 3 according to the Cochrane guidelines, so like Medline, Embase, Cochrane Central, etc. Where this one, they're looking at one database, they've kind of abbreviated the data sources they're looking at, and then they're looking at Google Scholar to find some things quickly, and then looking at a very specific website and grade literature. So yeah, that's the other clues for me, that there was a bit of an abbreviated process that happened as well. But again, this one is a bit of a tricky one. And of course, save that one for last. But in the last bit of time we have, I'm just going to thank you again to everyone for participating in those questions. But in the last few minutes that we have, I'm going to talk about some great resources that exist out there as well. So one of these is this tool can help you figure out what type of review, what type of knowledge synthesis you should conduct. So this is called Write Review. And I'm going to just quickly move out of here. Oh. I thought I had this open on this slide here, but let's click on this link. There we go. So if you go to this website here, this will be available in the slides. What you can do is that you can go through this tool so you can think about, I'm doing, maybe I'm doing a quantitative review. You can select that, and then it'll open up a series of other questions that you can answer in terms of, what is your goal and objective? Maybe I'm looking at effectiveness or safety of interventions. Is your review about diagnostic tests? I'm going to say not applicable. What kind of evidence will you be using? I'm going to say systematic and primary. Type of analysis will you conduct? I'm going to say maybe descriptive analysis. And then, do you have any time or cost constraints to complete your review? So we've talked a bit about time constraints. Cost constraints can also be, having sometimes members on your team. They can be resources, getting, paying money for citation managers, statistical software, citation software, all that kind of stuff. So those are other things to think about as well. Maybe I'll say, yes, I do have some constraints on my time or in cost. Click on Submit. And then it's going to provide you with some answers about what would be the best type of review for you to conduct. So you can see rapid review is automatically popping up here because I'm saying there are some time and cost constraints, but it's also saying that maybe a systematic review could be possible as well. It's going to give you a definition. It's going to give you some information about conduct and reporting guidance so that you can take a bit more of a deeper dive and figure out whether this is the best review type for you. And there's also example of methods here as well. So anyway, this is a great little tool to use in order when you're trying to think about what review type you should use. I'll also mention that we also have some really great resources on our website. So our website can be found at UHNLibraries.ca. This URL will be is on our slides. It will be included as part of this presentation and will be on the final slide as well. But you can also get access to the virtual library through the intranet as well if you ever forget our URL. But we have some really great tools and resources and services. So, for example, if you would like a librarian support in your knowledge synthesis project, you can go to services to knowledge synthesis support. And then we have some information about how a librarian can help with your knowledge synthesis project. And we have information on the different types of options that we have. So we have a consultation. If you would just like some consultation on different questions relating to your review project, or we also have collaboration with a librarian with co-authorship, where for something like a systematic scope and review, rapid review, we can do the searches for you and be involved as a member of your team on your project as well. So all the requirements and the supports that we offer are listed here on our website for any of these support options. And then we also have a link to our knowledge synthesis project proposal form. So before we meet with people, if they want the full shebang, all the collaboration with the librarian, you fill out this form and then provide us a copy of your protocol. And so all information about how we at UHN Libraries can support your knowledge synthesis project are available here. And then we also, right next to services, there is research toolbox. And so we have two guides here that would be very valuable. So the one here, systematic review overview. So this takes you through the 8 steps of conducting a systematic review, and also has guidance, has sources, and underneath each of these pages. And then also under Research Toolbox, we have types of literature reviews, which covers a lot of what we covered in the session today. So giving you an overall definition of what literature review is, traditional narrative review, a lot of great sources and resources to look at here. And same thing also for knowledge syntheses as well. So going through different common types, what's expected, and then some great resources there as well. So all of this is available to you here on our UHN Libraries website. And I'll just move back to the slides. Sorry, the toolbar is just blocking me a little here. But so that is everything that I wanted to cover today. So I know we have a few minutes left, but are there any questions from anyone in the audience that Rui hasn't been able to answer so far?
Yeah, actually, we haven't had any questions, so I don't know, maybe they want to ask at the end of the session.
Yeah, sure. If anyone has any questions right now, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
And yes, you can have a copy of the slides. Raluca is going to send them to you, and also you will have access to the recording session. The session is recorded.
Yes. Yes, you have access to the recording, and I'll also just quickly mention, maybe while people are thinking of other questions, that on our UHN Library page, we have, you might have already been here already, but we have our workshops tab. And so we have workshops and training, and then so we have all of our upcoming workshops here. So for example, systematic review overview. So going through all the steps of a systematic review is going to be next week. But we also have recordings of all of our workshops here as well. So for some reason you're not able to attend one of our workshops, we do have some recordings of past ones. But I do think that the live ones are very valuable because they have the opportunity to to answer any sort of questions you may have as well. And I know some of the interactivity is cut out a little bit too, but those are always there as well for you to refer to at any time. If anyone, like I said, has any questions, please feel free to stay on. If not, like I said, if you have anything that comes up in the future, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or the library in general. I'll also mention that please complete the evaluation form for today's session. It's very valuable for us to get feedback to know what's working for our sessions, what we can improve. So if you could please do that, that'd be fantastic. And also please consider joining our mailing list for all the latest news from UHN Libraries, for the different workshops we offer, different services, different resources, anything like that. But yes, thank you for attending today's session, and I hope it was valuable.